Hey Virgo, thanks for being here. Mm, okay, the foundation of everything you believed about a specific man is about to crack completely apart, isn't it? Not small disappointment or minor letdown, but revelation so devastating it's going to split you into before and after versions of yourself, where the person who trusted him can't coexist with the person who knows what he actually did. And that shattering, that absolute rupture of your reality around who you thought he was versus who he's about to be revealed as is going to break you open in ways that feel unbearable right now, but ultimately force you to rebuild yourself stronger, wiser, less willing to ignore red flags you've been explaining away. Let me share what's converging in the devastating truth zones surrounding your immediate reality. The first absolutely crushing thing breaking through is you're about to discover betrayal you didn't see coming. You're probably trusting this man completely, maybe romantic partner, maybe father, maybe mentor, maybe close friend, and you're about to learn he's been deceiving you about something fundamental. Not small lie, but significant, ongoing deception that recontextualizes everything. You might be discovering he's been living double life, hiding serious information, manipulating you systematically while you believed you knew him. And that revelation that your perception of him was entirely constructed, that he's been performing version of himself while actual him was doing things you would never tolerate if you knew, is going to make you question your own judgment so profoundly that you won't know what you can trust anymore. Here's the brutal truth about what you're experiencing. The revelation is going to come from external source, not from him confessing. You're probably going to learn the truth through someone else telling you, through evidence you accidentally discover, through situation forcing exposure, and he's going to be caught rather than choosing honesty. You might be dealing with a man who would have continued deceiving you indefinitely if he hadn't been forced into light. And recognizing that he valued his deception more than your right to truth, that he was willing to let you live in constructed reality rather than risk losing whatever he was protecting through lies, is going to devastate you in ways the actual content of betrayal might not even fully capture. What's detonating in the heartbreak epicenters is the thing he did involves your vulnerability being exploited. You're probably going to discover he used information you shared in confidence, took advantage of trust you gave him, betrayed you specifically in areas where you were most exposed, and that targeting of your tender places is what makes this break you in two. You might learn he shared private details, mocked your vulnerabilities to others, used your weaknesses strategically, and discovering that intimacy you thought was sacred was actually weaponized against you is going to make you feel unsafe in your own skin, because if you couldn't trust your instincts about this person, how can you trust yourself about anything? This reflection demands you examine whether you've been ignoring warning signs because you wanted to believe in him more than you wanted to protect yourself, is less than has hone, zero hash is greater than. And whether this devastating revelation is actually universe forcing you to see what you've been refusing to acknowledge, because accepting his character flaws would have required you to leave and you weren't ready to face that loss. You're probably about to discover financial betrayal. You might learn he's been stealing from you, hiding money, lying about financial situation, making decisions with shared resources that only serve him. And that economic deception is going to add practical devastation to emotional betrayal. You could be facing not just heartbreak, but actual financial damage. Discovering debts he created in your name, assets he hid, money he spent that you thought was saved, and having to deal with concrete consequences of his dishonesty while simultaneously processing emotional impact is going to overwhelm your capacity to cope. What's also erupting is you're going to discover he's been with someone else. You're probably about to learn about affair, about other relationship, about romantic or sexual involvement he's been hiding. And the scope of that parallel life is going to stagger you. You might discover this wasn't casual mistake, but sustained deception. Relationship that's been ongoing for months or years, possibly even longer than what he has with you, and realizing that while you thought you were his partner, you were actually one of multiple people he was dividing himself between is going to make you feel like everything you shared was contaminated. What's threading through the revelation patterns is you're going to discover he's been lying about his identity or history. You're probably about to learn basic facts he told you about himself weren't true. His past, his credentials, his circumstances, his availability, and discovering you don't actually know who he is because he's been playing character is going to create existential vertigo. You might realize that person you fell for doesn't exist, that you've been in relationship with performance rather than with real human, and grieving loss of someone who was never real is uniquely painful because there's no way to get closure from fiction. You're probably going to find out through his behavior toward you changing dramatically once he's exposed. You might experience him becoming cruel, defensive, attacking you for discovering truth rather than taking accountability. And watching him reveal this ugliness is going to complete the shattering because you'll see that even his remorse is performance. You could witness him prioritizing damage control over your healing, watching him lie to others about what happened, trying to make you look unstable for being upset, and that Darvo response, deny, attack, reverse victim and offender, is going to show you exactly who he is when his mask comes off. What's particularly devastating about what I'm witnessing is you're going to discover other people knew and didn't tell you. You're probably going to learn that friends, family, mutual acquaintances were aware of his deception and chose to protect him or mind their business rather than warn you. And that betrayal by community is going to compound original betrayal. You might face secondary heartbreak is less than has hone. Zero hash is greater than of realizing social circle you trusted was complicit in your deception through their silence and having to process that while you were being made fool of. People who claimed to care about you let it continue rather than risk awkwardness of telling you truth. This reflection demands you examine whether you've been making it clear that you don't want to know hard truths about people you love, and whether people around you stayed silent because they were protecting themselves or because you've punished messengers before and they learned not to bring you bad news even when you needed it. You're probably going to discover the timeline of deception was longer than you can accept. You might learn this has been going on since the beginning, that things you thought were milestones in your relationship were occurring while he was already betraying you. And having to reconstruct your entire history through lens of knowing he was lying creates a cognitive task that's genuinely overwhelming. You could spend weeks replaying memories, reinterpreting moments you thought you understood, and that retroactive poisoning of good memories is theft of your past that adds to devastation of your present. What's also combusting is you're going to feel stupid for not knowing. You're probably going to torture yourself with questions about what you missed, what signs you explained away, how you could have been so blind. And that self blame is going to be as painful as his actual betrayal because you're directing anger inward. You might be beating yourself up is less than has home. Zero hash is greater than, when really you were dealing with skilled liar who invested significant energy into maintaining deception, and recognizing that you're not stupid for being deceived by someone who was intentionally deceiving you is going to require you to redirect blame where it belongs on him for lying rather than on you for believing. The devastation acceleration patterns suggest you're going to discover he's done this before. You're probably going to learn this is pattern with him, that you're not his first victim, that other people have been through exactly what you're experiencing. And while that should make you feel less alone, it might actually make you feel worse because it proves this wasn't a tragic mistake, but deliberate methodology. You could learn he's incapable of authentic connection, and accepting that this person you loved deeply isn't capable of loving anyone the way you need to be loved is going to require you to grieve not just relationship, but the potential you thought existed. What's significant is the revelation is going to force you to make decision you're not ready to make. You're probably going to have to choose whether to stay and try to rebuild or whether to leave. And that decision is complicated by logistics, by history, by hope that person you loved is still in there somewhere. You might be tempted to accept his explanations, to believe he can change, to invest in reconciliation, and determining whether that's courageous forgiveness or dangerous denial is going to require you to be more honest with yourself than you've ever been about whether you're responding to who he actually is or who you want him to be. This reflection demands you examine whether you're someone who can genuinely forgive and rebuild after betrayal, this significant, or whether you're going to stay while harboring resentment that will poison everything until relationship dies slowly instead of ending cleanly now, and which of those futures actually serves your well-being versus just postpones inevitable pain. um, you're going to discover the revelation affects how others see you. You might experience social consequences, judgment from people who think you should have known, pity from people who feel sorry for you, gossip about your situation circulating, and having your private pain become public knowledge is going to add humiliation to heartbreak. You could face scrutiny about why you stayed, what you tolerated, whether you were complicit, and managing other people's opinions while you're trying to survive emotional devastation is going to require you to set boundaries with people who think they're entitled to commentary on your trauma. What I'm witnessing in the breaking patterns is this devastation is going to ultimately serve your evolution. You're going to be broken in two. The naive version who trusted without verification, dying so wiser version who trusts carefully can emerge. And while that transformation is excruciating, it's necessary because staying who you were meant continuing to be vulnerable to this kind of betrayal. You might eventually recognize that this man's betrayal, as terrible as it is teaching you about red flags, about maintaining standards, about not sacrificing your peace for a relationship with someone who doesn't value honesty. So, as you approach or are experiencing this terrible revelation that's splitting you into before and after, know that the pain you're feeling is proportional to how much you invested. You're probably shattered because you loved genuinely, because you gave real trust, because you were authentic while he was performing, and there's no shame in being broken by discovering that vulnerability was exploited. This man is breaking you into the revelation is terrible, the betrayal is real, and you're going to survive it even though right now survival seems impossible. You're going to cry more than you thought possible. You're going to rage. You're going to bargain. You're going to try to make sense of senseless cruelty. And eventually, when you're ready, you're going to integrate what happened into your story without letting it define you. The breaking is happening. Let it break you. Because from those broken pieces, you're going to build a version of yourself that doesn't ignore warning signs, that doesn't explain away inconsistencies, that doesn't sacrifice truth for comfort. The you on other side of this devastation is going to be harder to deceive, easier to respect, and far less willing to tolerate breadcrumbs when you deserve full meals. You're breaking in two, but you're not broken beyond repair. And the glue that puts you back together, your resilience, your self respect, your refusal to let his betrayal steal your capacity for trust forever, that glue is going to make you stronger at fracture points. You're going to survive this. Eventually, you're going to be grateful it ended now rather than years from now. Trust that. Even if you can't feel it yet, the breaking makes room for becoming. Let it